So we're back.
Another episode.
Episode, what is it, 3?
3.
Hello everybody, Dan and
Dom.
Well, good to see you all again. We decided to, just to get right to the third episode. So many things to discuss. We've covered quite a bit of ground in the first couple, some ramblings, and here we're gonna dive into some meatier concepts in this episode that we talked about. I think last time we left off talking about kind of what the state of affairs is a bit, and what men want and women want, and the sexes, and then kind of the frustrations out there, especially among men. And this time we wanted to dive a little deeper into the concept of love, and how do we build loving relationships, and what is love, and even unconditional love. Is there such a thing, and what does it mean? And just kind of discuss these things that they've been circling around in our minds. And I think we thought it would be a good foundation for future discussions to kind of get a bit of a grasp on what this thing called love is. And there's obviously a lot more has been said about this than we could ever hope to discuss or cover in a short episode. But we just wanted to cover some basics and our thoughts. And
and
Dom, what do you think?
There's so much to cover here, but I think, my intention at least here is that we also we have it in today's context and in 2025, and then see if things have changed over time, or if it's just us sort of, as you get older, you think more about these concepts, and why do you want to actually reach this point of unconditional love? Is that actually I don't know how many people actually are striving for this, but I'm mentioning this because I think of it as the the highest form of happiness. Again, it's probably not the right word, but I think everybody understands it. It's a profound state of happiness. Okay, in return, it gives you a lot of peace and a lot of inner freedom. Okay, so it takes away a lot of the stress and anxiety and the needs and the wants, and that's why I think it's worth it even talking about it, and that's why it's worth striving towards it. Okay, because you could say these are abstract concepts, why would I even care about this? I think you care about it because, anyways, that's sort of my starting point.
Okay? I think that's a good way of putting it. It's worth striving towards it. We may never reach it, but ultimately love is the glue that holds relationships together. And if we're talking about ways of keeping relationships healthy and long and maybe forever and rewarding, then love is that glue. And love is the thing that makes the world go round, right? It's all what we all seek, they say. And I do think it's important, and love comes in many forms, and we'll talk about that a little bit. We're not experts in this, but we want to focus on romantic love here and the love towards a partner. And again, we do have a hetero angle. I do want to always emphasize that, because that's what we are, but many of these concepts apply to any kind of relationship, loving relationships, whether it be heterosexual or not. So with that, I guess I'll just dive in a bit. Like we kind of started thinking about this concept of unconditional love, but we'll put that on hold a bit. We'll get to it. We want to discuss love in general and relationships and kind of, as we were sitting here talking, kind of preparing for this episode and discussing, and we kind of came up with a sort of hierarchy of let's say, loving relationships. So you have, and then the ingredients that are necessary for that. You have the relationship, at the bottom. That's kind of the foundation. So ingredients necessary for a relationship, and then you have the romance, so the romantic part of that. Obviously, you have relationships with friends, family, children, co-workers. So you have all kinds of relationships, and having good relationships requires certain ingredients. So that applies to all relationships. And then for romantic relationships, the next level, if you kind of stack romance on top of the relationship, that's a specific type of relationship. Then you have certain ingredients for that, attraction, chemistry, intimacy, and so on. And then on top of that, now if you advance to the next level, you have love, right? So you have a loving, romantic relationship. And what are the ingredients for love? And what does it take to get there? Do you have love at first sight? Is there such a thing? People say, oh, love at first sight. Is that really love at first sight? Or is it infatuation at first sight? And some people could say, well, no, it's love at first sight. But is it really so? And yeah, we've all had those instances where I see somebody, I'm like, I could fall in love. I always think I could fall in love with it. I never I'm pretty slow to love and declare love, and we can talk about that, and actually the responsibilities of love, even saying I love you, and actually the responsibility of letting somebody fall in love with you. There's also some responsibility in that. So there's responsibility in loving somebody and letting somebody fall in love with you. And saying I love you, what does that mean? And people kind of throw that word around easily. I don't, for me, it takes me a while to say that. And I remember I was once in a relationship. I didn't tell my girlfriend for 2 years that I loved her. And the reason is that I didn't. I didn't feel that thing. For me to say I love you means I can spend my life with you. Like and I have that feeling. Butterflies. There's just that. I don't know. That certainty, let's say, that I could literally in that moment see myself spending my life with you. And then this person, even though she was a great, fantastic woman and girl, and maybe the one who got away, but I actually tried to. And then 2 years later, we were having a discussion. I said, well, I really like you, but blah, blah, blah. And she lost it, didn't respond well to that. And she broke up with me, actually. And then I tried to get back together with her. Anyway, that's a different story. I don't want to digress, but that's how extreme I can get with that. And I think there is something there, and I don't take that word lightly. Dom, how do you feel about that part before I kind of the word love?
Well,
and
it's
how fast you fall in love from your experience, maybe.
It definitely takes some time until you use that word in a relationship, and it should take time. I feel like, because it adds sort of meaning to this word, but I also realize that there are sort of different languages use that word in different circumstances a little bit. Which is very interesting, because you use the same word, but it can mean different things, right? Like when kids say, goodbye to the parents, say, love you, dad, or love you, mom, or whatever. Like, use the same word, but it means something different in this regard. So that might be also be playing a role, and every family handles that also different. every person handles this a bit differently. But the thing that got me thinking, what when we talked about in our meeting before the episode, is that what love actually sort of means, and people always, like they look at themselves, basically how you make me feel, or sort of, right? And I thought that was I've never thought about this, that you're saying basically that love is not about sort of, or not only, or is it not about yourself, but how you make the other person feel?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, and we'll talk about that, but there's a when you get to the highest forms of love, and love, and maybe any love, true love, there's an element of how I think most people see love selfishly. It's about how the other person makes you feel. So how do I feel by your love? You make me happy, right? And when you stop making me happy, then I'm going to fall out of love with you. Or you bring me some benefit, happiness, safety, resources, money, on and on, a good life, a happy life, a bigger house, a bigger car, gifts, happy fuzzy feelings, I get turned on because I think you're hot, like whatever, like me. Whereas the real love is about your ability to actually put yourself in the other person's shoes and say, well, how do I make them feel, right? Do I make them feel happy? Do I make them a better person? Do I make them, so it's almost like a self-sacrificial, we talk, I think I mentioned this word in one of the previous episodes, displacement of the ego. Ego is your own kind of ego drive, your own identity, and it's me driven. When you displace that, you displace it onto another person. So you kind of all of a sudden look at the world not from your viewpoint, but from another person's viewpoint, your loved one. And so they become almost more important than you. I think a love towards a child is probably the only greater example. Mother for a child, they to jump in fire to save her child's life. And so can you achieve that in romantic love? Well, again, like you said, it's maybe something to strive towards, but and that's unconditional love. The love of a mother for her child is unconditional, right? The only person who would ever love you unconditionally with certainty, well, if at least in ideal circumstances, would be your parents, and specifically your mom, because the extreme bond that is formed at birth and through pregnancy and so on. And so can you achieve some measure of that in a romantic relationship? Maybe you never get quite to that level, but that should be the thing to strive for. And that is ultimately selfless, right? That's what it's, the love for a child is selfless. Like the child comes first. So the same kind of love should apply towards your partner if it's true and unconditional, that highest level. That doesn't mean anything is tolerated. Now we'll get into that.
Correct.
So let's not jump ahead of ourselves. Okay. I do want to kind of quickly. I mentioned this framework where we kind of came up with this, of this pyramid again, which I think would be good to cover quickly again. Of sort of think of it as a three, level. You've seen the food pyramid. This is kind of the love pyramid. You have the relationship requirements at the bottom, the romance requirements in the middle, and the love requirements on the top. Or ingredients, and these are debatable, but we're kind of playing around with, well, what are these ingredients? So for relationship, a good relationship requires things in common, so that's, I need to for me to have a relationship with anybody, not just a romantic partner, I have to have something in common with them. I have to similar likes, hobbies, interests. I don't know, be able to talk to them and converse and be interested by what they have to say. And of course there are other, in work and so on. But that's some, values, perhaps, education. I don't know. Can you think of other things? So what are the ingredients of good relationships in general, not necessarily romantic?
Well, I think you have to have some kind of common goal, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. Common goals, values. Trust. I mean, I think trust also is higher, and love also very important. But certainly in relationships, trust is important.
Yes. I don't know if you have to have, like common. Well, you can have common hobbies, but I think there's also relationships
interests
out there. Yes. But I think there's actually also, there are relationships where the couple does not have a common hobby or interests, but they do have they enjoy each other's company. So this interest in
well, they can converse. I mean, they might not have things in common. And actually, I mentioned I want somebody who has different interests than me, because then I learn something different.
Yes.
And maybe I'll acquire that interest. And it's happened in the past, where partners have had different interests and hobbies, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. Things that I don't know about. I wouldn't want, like I said, I wouldn't want my partner to have the same profession as I, in a medical field. It might bore me. Or it's just like, I don't want to come home and hear the same stuff, Again, it has some advantages. We don't want to get into that, but sure.
I think especially for the medical field, I think this can actually be a good thing, because it's so unique and so special.
Yeah, we talked about that. We don't want to
talk about, but I definitely agree that you should have also separate hobbies.
Yeah. So I think you don't have to have the same interests in common, but I think that's a good point. The ability to communicate and be interested in one another.
Yes.
Right? I think
genuine interest.
General interest.
Yeah. Genuine interest.
Genuine interest. Yes.
And not just, the guy coming home and talking about his work, and the other person just, goes in one side and then goes at the other side.
Mutual, exactly. It has to be bi-directional. Okay, great. So now romance. What are the ingredients of a good romantic relationship?
And that includes the physical part, right?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, yeah, let's say. So we're trying to separate, sort of tease out these different, at least high level categories. What are
the ingredients of a romantic relationship? Is that when we come in with the trust, right? The safety.
Yeah.
The loyalty, I would also put in. The intimacy part comes in. The chemistry part, right? Yeah. Also, you need to have this attraction.
Exactly. Yeah. Attraction, chemistry, intimacy, right? So you have to be. There has to be some mutual attraction, physical chemistry, or chemistry of many things. Intimacy, which I have to be intimate. Physical touch. Essentially, and then of course, trust, safety, and many of the things that are required of general relationships. But here we're trying again to separate the more romantic elements of it.
We know that you can have a romantic relationship with someone without love, right?
Yeah, we're not at love. Love is the last frontier.
I know. But I'm also mentioning this because you can also.
So we can be at this level and just not love the person fully at that advanced love thing that we're gonna get to.
But I was gonna ask, can you love somebody without this romantic? Is the second step
mandatory? Again, that's more like friend love, child love, like, so again, that's a kind of different pyramid somewhere else, you know, like
Okay.
we're talking here romantic
Mm-hmm.
relationships and romantic love, and so we're
Mm-hmm.
breaking this up into these three things
Good.
for this. But yes, you can have love without, obviously, for friends and family and children and specifically. So yeah, I think those are the ingredients of romance, and you can stay there. Like, and I think most people, when they meet, that's where they are. You know, romantic relationship, dating. We have the ingredients of a relationship, they're good. We have the ingredients of romance, they're good, you know, and I have this infatuation or whatever, you know, sexual attraction and intimacy, and so that's good. Now, at some point, this becomes love, hopefully. Many times it doesn't. You move on to you swipe left and you move on. Wait, right? I don't know. Whatever. You know, most, you know, don't get to love. And some, well, and the other thing, say, well, no, I love you. They say love, they start throwing that word around, but they actually aren't there, in my view. So I think this is what we're trying to get to, because by understanding, I think what love really is, maybe people will be more careful in how they use that term. I think they should. There is maybe love at first sight. I don't know. I don't believe in it. Like, I don't think love, as I see the concept of love, is possible at first sight for these reasons, because I think it takes time to develop and it requires some significant ingredients here. Like, I'm going to mention them in a second. But, you know, that's not to say that, yeah, somebody, you know, you could have an intense attraction that then later you could say, well, this person is so attractive and they have such great qualities that I can immediately tell that I could fall in love with you. That is possible. You could say, I see somebody, I could fall in love with you. And that's happened to me in my previous relationship. I'll get to that in a bit, but I want to finish here the final step of the pyramid, the highest now, third level, which is love. And what are the ingredients for that? And here's where we had to do a little homework, because it kind of gets into the realm of love and unconditional love, and there's been a lot written on this, and I'll mention a few, at least one source, but you can go out and read, and if we come across anything further, we'll talk about it in maybe another episode. But I think ultimately love is, you know, you get to that point of acceptance without judgment. And that's kind of a definition of unconditional love somewhat. But trust, respect, we you know, trust is paramount. Basically, I know you'll be there for me just as I will be there for you. Respect is crucial in love. You know, although maybe respect is more like, you know, I don't know, like if it falls in the relationship tier or love, but I think in a healthy relationship and maybe love, I think respect is important.
Wasn't also acceptance sort of is an
Acceptance,
better term?
yeah, acceptance without judgment, yeah, it's without judgment. Care, safety, this feeling that you're my home and I'm yours. And I think sacrifice, you know, you had some different views on that, but I do think that true love is maybe proven best through hardships or through difficulties. It's easy to love somebody when everything is great. Life is easy, things are good. It's when you run into problems that love is shown and proven, and if it can withstand hardships, and by hardships I mean, yeah, life events, life difficulties, and when that person's not at their best, you know, they lose their job, they get stressed out, they get sick, well, worse, you know, like you said, they lose a leg, you know, anything from minor things to major things, and including the person misbehaving, even like, or behaving in not an ideal way, not they're optimal and not in a way that makes you happy. And so you have to get through that. And I think, you know, through some hardships and to prove yourself, you know, for this thing to prove itself, you know, both ways. And that's why I think, like, for me at least, like if my partner stands by me through some difficult period and supports me through like a really low period in my life, my sentiment, my love for them will grow, and I'll hold them in higher regard, and I will want to do the same for them, and my love will grow, and so I do think it's essential, like, versus if everything's good and there's nothing, you know, there's nothing to prove. Like I don't know. That's. What do you think, Dom?
I think it's important to. Well, I have a bit of a problem with this word unconditional love, as long as it's sort of in a positive space, meaning that the other person doesn't intentionally sort of do.
Well, let's talk about love. Like, unconditional love is like that fine, like that ideal, but just love, even like basic love, or this.
Well,
unconditional love is that last stage, idealized and maybe impossible stage to reach.
And I don't really disagree with that. That is the it might be the highest stage, but I don't think it's the. I don't think it's the stage you want to strive for. And I am also not sure if you really need sacrifice and if you need to prove. Yes, you can in hindsight look back and say, you know, there's a strong love, or we actually sort of like we I mean, I think you can love somebody without any hardship. Without any sort of like, if it's a proven love or unproven love, I don't know if it becomes stronger, or if it's better. I don't know.
Ideally, you don't want to have.
I don't know if it you know, do you? It sounds almost like you have to have some hardship in order to be able to grow.
I don't think you have to. I'm saying, if there is some hardship and the love and the relationship survives, the love grows. It's not like a sine qua, you know, like something sine qua non, you know, like that's required for love to exist. Of course not. I mean, you could have a perfectly happy life, and hopefully that's the case. You know, you don't want to. Let's have some miserable experiences, honey, so we can prove our love for one another. No, I mean, hopefully life will be good and will remain good. And
I mean, maybe it is something that should exist.
But
right? There should be a test. Maybe there should be a test that you can go through. You know, like you put the couple, you know, intentionally into
Love Island. Let's like, maybe we can do a reality show on that.
These are the you know, to test your love. You know, to prove your.
Again, I don't think hardships are required to prove love or self-sacrifice. And certainly now let's get into this concept of unconditional love and what that means. I think, again, like, it's acceptance without judgment. Now, does that mean that it's anything goes and I should stand by you no matter what? And I think people get into this confusion, right, about unconditional love, and you say, well, the term doesn't sound right, and no, nothing can be unconditional, because the person could be toxic, harmful, violent, abusive, and of course you shouldn't tolerate that. But, and we were talking about this earlier, what my contention was that if you separate, you could still, there's a solution, is you walk away. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't love them, but you are free and actually maybe obligated to walk away. And so if you separate the concept of love from the concept of relationship or proximity or that, then you've solved that dilemma, right? Because I could say, well, I'm in love with you, I love you, and then this whole thing, oh, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. And I think maybe some people actually use this to mean this, you know what I'm saying in a way. I love you, but I cannot be with you because whatever. But I think this is abuse, right? I mean, a bit like it's just kind of a nice way of saying I'm out, you know, and I like you as a person, but because
I mean,
if you yeah, this whole I'm in love with you, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. I don't know if you ever heard it. Yeah, this is, I've been told this before at breakups, you know, because in love is kind of like, in love I'm with you. As in a relationship, I love you, no, you're my friend. Yeah, so but the sure, my point is that unconditional love doesn't mean unconditional in the sense that you have to stick by that person no matter what. There are still boundaries and self-protection and behaviors that are not tolerable, and you know, you can still love somebody, but choose to not be with them because they're harmful to you, so the issue is, what, you know, is that love? Like if I walk away, is that still love? I mean, because if you love somebody, how can you part ways? And I said earlier, I think of love as almost like a vow. Like when I tell somebody I love them, in that moment I feel like, well, I could spend my life with them. Maybe I can marry this person. I can, you know, be with them forever. Like that's how intense I feel for them. And it takes me a while to get to that point where I feel comfortable enough to say that. And I certainly don't say it for everybody I date. So the issue then is, how can you then now say, well, and what's, you know, when does it become unconditional? And I think it's when you're saying basically it doesn't matter. It's I love the person, not I love you for who you are, not what you can do for me. I love you irrespective of the circumstances, as long as those circumstances don't become harmful or toxic or abusive to me. I will be there. And also I want to make you a better person, and make, you know, make sure that you are happy and loving towards me. And ultimately, there is this thing of unconditional love also being able to let go. You know, in a way, like if the other person's no longer happy with you, do you love them so much? Can you love them so much as to say, well, I care for your happiness more than mine, and if you're not happy with me, I love you so much that I want you to be happy, and I say you're free to pursue that happiness. That is the sort of pinnacle of love, and perhaps unconditional love. So it's like almost this this very highbrow, highfalutin concept of non-judging, non-emotional, and ultimately completely selfless sentiment, you know, where the other person's happiness is just as important as mine, if not more so. I want the best for them. I want them to be happy. I want them to be the best human they can be. I want them to be in love with me as I am with them. And if they're not, I'm willing to set them free. And of course, if they become toxic and violent, and I might still love them, but then I reserve the right to also pull away. So it doesn't mean unconditional it's an abstraction. And I want to talk about also, the concept of love, Eric Fromm, and the what's his book called, The Art of Loving. It's a seminal work about love and what it means, and you can check that out. But he describes love as an act of will, as an action, not a feeling. And it is, because at some point, the feelings, the emotions wane. You go through ups and downs, so you have to will yourself through that. You almost have to convince yourself that you love that person, and just say, well, I love you because you are a unique person that I have these feelings for, that I had him once. You have to remind yourself, and maybe these other things. So, and then by doing that, the love can grow and come back. So love and feelings and emotions, they wax and wane. We all go through this, where some days you just want to run. You don't love your partner. Does that mean you leave? Some people do. People are ADD. They just, and especially these days with so many options, and it's so easy to find new people on apps and whatever, but it's a mirage, because people sacrifice intimacy and years of experiences and memories, not to mention families and all these things, and maybe throw it away because you've had a bad streak or a bad run and some moments of frustration, and of course that doesn't mean that you should tolerate abuse or violence, emotional abuse, poor behavior, or just things that make your life miserable. And those are different discussions on how you resolve that, and we'll have to maybe talk about that in a different episode, conflict resolution and getting through how do you, the mechanics of overcoming hardships, overcoming things that might take down the relationships. And maybe sometimes it's impossible, and you can say, well, we love each other, but we can't be together. It's just, but blah blah blah. I'll stop. Dom,
this is very abstract, and
it is a bit abstract.
For me, I don't think that far. Usually, I think it's good practice probably to think that far. But for me, it's important. When we talk about unconditional love and not being abusive and all this, I think that the intent is important. So things can be abusive, but if the other person is abusive intentionally, okay, then that's a no-go, okay. But if the other person does not do it intentionally, okay, so these are again like extreme cases, okay, but it's for me that's sort of a good test, and that's important. I feel like as long as the intentions are right, okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
And maybe I'm getting to my sort of my mental test, okay, to find out, if you're in the right frame of mind when you're looking at a relationship, to see, is there love? Do these two people love each other? And I'm thinking about this, these two homeless people, okay? that to me is a good test. Okay?
The homeless love.
The homeless love. Okay, I know it's probably not the best thing, and maybe it's better to talk about hippie love. Okay, but it's basically two people that, you know, they're both of them are down on their luck. I guess they don't own anything anymore. Maybe they're big time in debt. They lost their houses or their house. They lost, you know, like all material things. They live off of welfare. They, I don't know, sleep in their car somewhere. Okay, let's not say, you know, Skid Row or whatever. But and most people are, I'm sure, unhappy. And then I'm not saying you know, have to, in order, you know, to have true love, you need to, you know, experience this, or most people that are homeless, I'm sure they're unhappy and they have lots of other issues. But as a thought experiment, again, I think it's a good test. Okay, if you can see yourself with this person living in a car somewhere in a, you know, camper trailer or whatever down by the river, and if you can get along and sort of maintain a positive, loving relationship. Okay, because I think that is a big problem for a lot of people, especially here in this area where it's so materialistic. Okay, and this unconditional, I think, often applies to materialistic things, you know, like you mentioned earlier, how you make me feel, you know, like, oh, you gave me this ring, therefore I love you because you make me so happy. And I love you for this. I love you for this, you know, and it's obviously we're trying to take away all of these things. And sometimes I feel like it's actually even better to not do you know, anything, to not sort of get used to this materialistic stuff. But obviously so many people are disappointed if they don't, you know, get a thing, you know, for...
Well, there's yeah, we talked about it a bit. We'll have to maybe dive into that on a different episode. The love languages. I don't know if you're familiar with the love languages. It's quite popular.
I've heard the term. Yes,
I heard it first time
people...
from a two girlfriends ago. She was like, I was what? Love what? I was very naive to this, but I mean, this has been going on for a while. This concept, and anyway, I do think there's something to it, and yeah, it's just different kinds of ways of expressing love.
But to me, also, it has to work like this. This also, yeah, this love language. It has to work if you live in a trailer somewhere in the woods, and you cannot buy, you know, like whatever you need that the other person sort of this love language. You know, if they, I don't know, you need to be able to, and it should work, and it shouldn't be super extremely difficult to sort of make it work at that point. It should be in, at least in your mind, in my mind. Okay, it's easy. Okay, if when you're at this stage.
But is it easier to sustain love when, well, I mean, in this kind of hippie sort of scenario that you give us, you know, there's not much going on. I'm just you and me, and we're by the river, we're fishing, or we're hunting, whatever. Like, we have a very simple life. We have all the time in the world. Versus a very complicated life where we both have crazy jobs, 3 kids, huge mortgage, 3 cars, maybe ailing parents, all kinds of stresses and pressures from all directions, annoying friends, keeping up with the Joneses, bills. Now, what's harder? I mean, maybe this is harder, you know, than living in a tent by the river.
Yes. Yes, yes. You need to. Maybe you should project yourself in both of these situations. Yeah. Yes. For me, this you know, keeping up with the Joneses and 3 cars and these payments and bills is much more difficult.
It is more difficult.
It is absolutely.
And so that's what I'm saying.
More difficult.
It's
but in
more
your
difficult to
mind,
sustain a love through this, perhaps.
But in your mind, okay, in your mind, when you're thinking in your day to day, your everyday sort of routine, I think it's the easiest to, you probably should think about this every single day. Maybe if you're that stressed in your life, okay, you probably need to also schedule some time about your sort of, hippie, your 5 minutes, I don't know.
Well,
10
yeah,
minutes.
I mean, date night, that's why they say it's important to have date night, quiet night, in these busy lives of ours that we lead.
That's, in my mind, that's too materialistic again, yeah. That means going out to a nice dinner.
It could be just watching a movie, it could be just eating popcorn at home, watching a movie, whatever it is. It just means moments of quiet and intimacy where you just focus on your partner. Yeah. Yeah,
I know it's a thing. I know it's a thing, but it should be the other way. Well,
I think what we both probably agree on is that, yeah, we need to consider the other person more than we do, like many people do. I think when it comes to love, and not make it just about ourselves. Like always ask what the other person thinks or feels, and give them the attention, time, and whatever is required, and love and affection to maintain and their love as well. Yeah, and not just think about what can you do for me, how do I feel, but how do I make you feel. Mm-hmm. And I know I've been guilty of like, I think I'm a very generally loving and caring person, but I can be very self-absorbed. And certainly in the last relationship, in others too probably, but especially lately, but the last one, there were times when I gave quite a bit in some ways. I sacrificed quite a lot and was prepared to sacrifice more, but there were moments where it really was, I was feeling my needs were not met, and maybe they weren't, I don't know, but I lashed out. I just kind of did not see how this person was feeling in that moment, and in retrospect I regretted actions and words that were probably very hurtful, because in that moment I felt like my needs were not met, so I made it all about me, and it really kind of served as the beginning of the end of that relationship.
Well, that being said, I understand this, and it's I'm sure it's disappointing, and it does happen, and it happens in the best of circumstances. But I just wanted to bring up one other point which I mentioned previously, that every relationship is also unique and very individual. So it's no matter what we're saying here and in the theory, and yes, I think most of it applies to most people, but in the end, relationships are so unique and so special. Like every person is different and special, and relationships are also very, very unique.
Yeah, but there are some common ingredients, like all these things we talked about. I think they have to.
Yes.
Be there for
but
the
did any of
healthy.
your relationships, did they feel anywhere close to sort of the same?
Yeah, there were recurring themes. Of course, every person is different, every partner is different, everybody brings different things, and they were different people, and they had different personalities, perhaps. But there's a lot of commonality also, and even a lot of recurring themes, and maybe even some recurring reasons why these failed that I have to now really think about. Yeah. Because again, what is the common denominator in all these failures? It's me. So again, I'm not saying I was always at fault. I wasn't. But, some people can make relationships work, and some people, even though I really wanted to make them work, they still failed. And so you have to kind of stop and question a bit, and also reflect. And I know there's some things I have to work on. And so, yeah. But back to, they're unique. Of course, every relationship is unique, but there's a lot of common ground and common themes through all of them. And maybe because I'm attracted to the same kind of person, similar personality, so they're maybe not as different as they would be otherwise. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna always be kind of seeking this type, right?
For this romantic part, but maybe then the love part sort of is.
The love part. I do think that in most of my relationship there was love. Like I think for me, I felt love. I love my partners. Most of them, I think, aside from the short dating ones that maybe didn't reach that love phase per se. It was just, we were dating. But the longer relationships, certainly, I was in love with them, because me, I can't. Just speaking for myself, I can't really, if I don't think I can fall in love with somebody. And maybe when I was younger, it was much younger, maybe it was different. You date and fool around, and it's not as big a deal. But as you get older, of course, every relationship becomes more important. This could be the one. You don't want to waste time anymore. So for me, the ones that extend beyond, let's say, 6 months, they get pretty serious. And you could say, I was in love with them, and probably they with me as well. In most cases, I can't read their minds, but I think they expressed their love. And was it real love? Well, they left, and some of these relationships that were really important to me, they actually are the ones who left. And so that was pretty tough, pretty difficult. This last one that I talked about in some previous episodes, where it was particularly hard. It wasn't extremely long, but it was somebody that I definitely fell in love with, and she fell in love with me very quickly, relatively, and but it ended up
Let me ask you, coming back to this pyramid that we built earlier, can you jump from the bottom to the top without going through the romantic part? Do you have to go through the romantic part in order to get to the love part? And then can you stay at the love part, but the romantic part can be gone? Like what we talked about last time, where people cohabitate, and are they still in love? The romantic part is gone. Is that okay? Can you jump from 3 to 1, basically?
Yeah, I think we talked about this last time when I had my own opinions on this, and I thought the romantic part was essential, right, in romantic love, but maybe not. I mean, again, there may be, and then okay, what happens over time, and when the romantic part fades and love remains, and we talked about these sort of physical, sexual feelings might diminish, but they're replaced with this profound attachment and and what we call love and all these things we've been talking about. And as you go through life and experience more and more life together, more memories, build more things, and your lives become intertwined, then that's when this love comes, and perhaps, yeah, it replaces, or for some it's sufficient. No longer requires the romantic element. But I do think that in healthy romantic relationships and loving, that romantic element and the physical element is needed, because we're human, right? And then if without it, yeah, you're apt to stray. And then, of course, then you get all the different flavors of open relationships and polyamory and swingers and whatever, because people love each other. They don't want to leave each other, but they want to also fulfill that physical side. So they may say, well, this is an open relationship, I'm going to go sleep with somebody else. Now, it's not for everybody. Not everybody's cup of tea.
So the couple still love each other,
yeah.
And basically
and they don't even want to split, because they could still love each other, but like, let's part ways, date other, see other people. But no, this is like, they want to remain together. And maybe they want to do that because, again, there are many constraints. They build a life, children, homes. We talked about that, and they might keep them together. But they could be happily open relationships, right? And I think that's where that comes from, because maybe that romantic side fades, no longer have the attraction. I can't force it, I can't do it, but I love you as a person, as a partner, as a mother, as a father, as a husband, as a wife, or whatever. And I don't want you out of my life, but I can't, I can't perform. I can't have my orgasm. I can't, and I don't know, like that. I haven't been in a relationship long enough, 10, 15, 20 years, and maybe at an age where none of my relationships ended because of that, because I lost my attraction for them. Maybe on the other side, but even that, like except for one that I think the sex had really gone downhill, and I don't think it was ever that good. That might have been a factor on the other side, but I don't think in any other one, on that aspect, it was solid. There were other factors for sure. And I think even on the other side, they didn't leave me because the sex was bad. Although maybe, again, in some it waned a bit towards the end, but in some it was fine to the end and then just gone. And well, there was a long distance one, of course, that's very different because it's very intermittent, and long distance is hard. You don't have that intimacy.
Looking back at your relationships, was there anything that was somewhat close to this unconditional one, or was it always conditional in the end?
Well, there was my long distance relationship, which was almost 7 years, and partner, my girlfriend, used to say, "I love you unconditionally." She used to, and I would be like, "Stop with this!" With unconditional love, what is that? It was a bit okay. But she was extremely romantic and loving, and then she used to say that. Now on my end, I was a bit, it took me again a long time to even say I loved her, and then I loved her, but because I think it was also always difficult, the long distance and some other circumstances gave me some pause, I was afraid to jump fully in, and I did eventually. I moved, across the world. I moved to Europe, to London, to make this work, and it worked for a bit, and then it didn't work when my professional life, when I lost my job there. So other circumstances kind of got in the way, and I made some decisions that maybe weren't best for the relationship. I came back and I had to work here.
Our circumstances.
And so was that unconditional? I loved her, but I didn't leave her.
Well, you
but,
said like there were circumstances, you know, that
so yeah,
to me
I mean,
sounds like a condition.
Yeah, it was
you know?
condition. Yeah, I can't say that I can't say that I had reached that point of unconditional love. No, because if I had, I would have stayed there and I would have been by her side and I would have made sure that she's happy, and she certainly didn't want me to leave. So no, I guess, and one could say, well, you didn't even really love her at all. I did, but I think, I was a bit more pragmatic in it, and selfish perhaps in the end, and certainly not at this unconditional stage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wish I could, or that we could give some, I don't know, because we talked about this earlier. How do you get to this stage, right? And I think if we would know the answer to this, we would, we would solve a lot of...
You have to be selfless. And I guess in the end, I wasn't, yeah.
But can you become this? Is there sort of an evolution, a development to get there? Or are you like this from the beginning?
It's a practice. I mean, I think even Eric Fromm in this book, it's an act of will. It's a practice. I think that's actually the word he uses.
So you decide.
You have to practice. You have
every single day, every
single
week,
day.
You choose to be unconditional.
You choose to love that person, and you choose to want the best for them, and you choose to be there for them. And, you have to tell them often. Once you get to that point where you know you love them, you have to remind them, tell them I love you, and do things that show it. And when you feel like you don't want to, or you want to run away, you have to will yourself to not. And wait for that when the feelings come back. And hopefully, it's like I said, practice.
Mm-hmm.
Practice makes perfect. So love doesn't just happen, it's built.
And it is an act of will.
This emotional thing, that the butterflies, all of that, it's at the beginning. And limerence, it's called. And it's just chemical reactions. And that wanes after 6 months, a year, 2 years for sure. I certainly found like at 2 years, you hit kind of a wall in a relationship a bit. Like maybe those intense attraction, the newness, it wears off. Certainly by 2 years. And then a lot of relationships fail at that point. Like they don't make it past that 2-3 year bump because you've lost that now. If you go past that, then something else must replace that, or compensate for it in some way. And of course, it varies with people and what they want, but. Yeah, for me, it's kind of, I mentioned that it's a bit earlier. If you tell somebody, even like if you tell somebody you love them, and it is almost like a forever thing, and it's always very hard, at least for me, when the relationship ends. Heartbreaks are pretty tough because I have in my mind this kind of concept of permanence once I say that. But yet when I think about my actions, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, they were not necessarily conducive to that. Like they were not maybe showing love, or certainly not unconditional love. So I still followed my best interest at times, and not that I walked away from the relationship, but I said, well, I need to do this. I need to go back and, and in that case, leave London, go back, get my job because, this new opportunity came up. And people do this all the time. And I was expecting, well, it's a compromise. You have to stay. We'll make it work again. We'll figure it out. But that person was not happy. She was, and she went through a real deep, very low period when I left. So was that right to do? No. Like if I really cared for her in that moment, I could say, well, I loved her, but I had to, you know, I was like, I told her, look, we need to do this now because I need to save my ass and, you know, get this job or whatever. And I said, well, she should understand and just work with me, you know, because we live in this world, we need to pay the bills. And she did, but she was not happy. Or say, well, no, I'm gonna stay here, and if this is what makes you happy, we'll figure it out in some other way. You know, these are decisions, and that's where the devil's in the details. You know, a lot of what we talked about is abstraction and kind of this, very abstract kind of, you know, these abstract concepts and so on. But when you get down to real day-to-day life, you have to deal with all these decisions every single day, and they're not all conducive to maintaining love and good relationship. But then that's when the other person, there's understanding. Like, you have to work through these difficulties, and that's when, again, this is when hardships and bumps, and that's when, it's hard to navigate these and still maintain love. And people develop resentments. Well, you didn't do what's in my best interest. You did what's what was in your interest, and so resentments develop, and so on. So, people are egotistical. Everybody wants their needs met, and if their needs aren't met, they tend to pull back. And how do you work through that? We can talk about it next time. I want to talk about jealousy, and you know, I had some, but that's a different topic a bit. But
But I mean, for me, a big takeaway is really this, what you said, that love is an act of will. I think that's a big one. That's a big important statement.
I didn't say it. Eric Fromm said it.
I know, but it's
I'm not smart enough to come up with that one.
Meaning you do have a choice, right? And you can choose. You know, it sounds like you can choose love at any moment.
Sure.
Any
That's
time.
also what.
Independent of, you have to pay your bills and you have to do this and that. Like it means it's not tied to anything else, right? It's a simple choice, basically. Yeah.
It is a choice. Yeah.
And a simple one. It's a very, very simplistic choice, because you don't need to consider anything else. You don't need to consider, you know, how much money you have in your bank account. You don't need to consider where you are and if you just lost your job or not, because these are all things that have nothing to do with the choice. Okay, where you say, you know, you choose to love this person. Period. End of story. Okay. And it kind of goes back into also what we previously already talked about. You know, can you learn, you know, to be attracted to somebody, or can you learn to love somebody? Okay, I think this an act of choice is even takes it even a step further than this. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's related a bit to what you were saying the other day.
Yes. You simply choose to love this person. If the other person, obviously both sides need to, I think that is the more difficult thing, right? Because you can choose to do this, but if the other person does not choose to do this, then nothing happens. Well,
it has to be mutual, yes.
Exactly. That's the difficult part, I find. That both people choose this every single day.
Well, it has to be mutual for the relationship to survive. But your love is your love. What you do with it, you know, you can only do your part. And the point is, again, to what I was saying, like, to try to put yourself in the other person's shoes and also think about them, their feelings, their wants, their needs, and how you can best express your love in a way that makes them love you back or grows their love. You want, I don't know, like you want the best for your partner. You want and I think this is like a bit, I don't want to get into the love languages here, but there's these, I don't know, there's like 5 love languages. One of them is acts of service, so that's my love language. I like to do things for my partner. I don't have...
You're the one that you're giving.
Yeah. I mean, it's both. It kind of works both ways. When you talk with your partner, you should talk about what each, what do I like to give and what do I like to receive. So exactly. So it could be different, right?
Yes.
So my love language, so it's what I give, is acts of service. So I do things, stupid things. I'll build something, or I'll do something, or I'll help you with your work, or and one partner, like her love language was, my last love language was last partners was physical touch. So that's another love language. That's not my love language. I mean, not that I don't like it, but it's not necessarily how I express my love. And it should be, because so if they tell you, hey, my love language, or gifts, that's another, gift giving, it's another love language. That definitely wasn't my love language. I made it so these last 2 relationships, it didn't work so much in this one. It worked a bit, but not really. So I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to get into the love languages now, but it's weird, because one of the girlfriends I had, she loved getting gifts, and then she was very generous and gave me gifts, and it actually made me feel pretty good. She probably gave me most gifts of any girlfriend I had, and but then she left anyway. Sometimes within a couple of weeks of giving me a really nice gift. So I don't know if that was manipulative, but a whole different story. But yeah, I think it's a good, it's kind of a silly thing. I'm not
this is
into
very,
this kind
very
of pop
dangerous.
psych.
This is very, very dangerous, I think, this
love languages. Yeah, they're a bit cheesy. And I tell you, when she first told me about them, I was like, what, this is crap. Did you read this in Cosmo? I was just kind of poo-pooing this whole thing. But then I got to appreciate it a little bit. And there's some truth there but anyway, I love to do things for my partners and build them up. Like I want them to be the best human they can be and excel in the things that they do, and be a very well-rounded and developed and happy person, and
be the best supporting actor.
Yeah, exactly. I'm their number 1 fan, so I don't think that's a bad thing. And
no.
And I don't think gift giving, gifts to me, are just kind of superficial. But again, that's me. I mean, I think a lot of people, and I like getting gifts, but it's not. If my girlfriend doesn't give me any gifts, I don't care. It's not a thing.
This fails this test of this hippie love or the homeless love. Okay, because you don't have any gifts. Okay, there's no.
Well, I can make a little bracelet. Isn't that what hippies do?
Exactly.
Bracelets.
Exactly, but both need to understand, sort of. Okay. But if somebody, when you're saying, like receiving gifts, right, and this is a nice gift and this is not a nice gift or whatever, then you're already,
it's more about thoughtfulness. It's more about is the gift thoughtful? Is it something that I like doing? It doesn't even have to be an expensive gift, but it has to be it should be a thoughtful gift. If it's going to be a gift at all, but an expensive gift, maybe some people like that. Look, I gave my last girlfriend a ring, and that thing, she was very happy for a few weeks, and then the whole thing blew up. So it didn't save it in the end. Yeah. So
I'm
gifts can only go so far, I think. I'm not sure gifts are the best way to fix things.
Maybe to wrap this up, but I think when you definitely know for sure, okay, that you're on the wrong path, is when, and I heard once on a Christmas morning, okay, I heard in the neighborhood, okay, a couple yell at each other, okay, Christmas morning, right?
Nice.
They were unwrapping gifts.
Really?
And it was like a newly married couple. Okay, I think it was at least their second marriage for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was their first Christmas together. And they were unwrapping gifts. I assume at that point it was Christmas morning, and then all of a sudden the woman started screaming because obviously she didn't receive a gift.
Is that what she was screaming about? Really?
Yes,
You know
and
that?
she screamed. Well, they heard her scream. Okay, she said, "This is how much you love me." Okay, so she unwrapped some kind of gift. Okay, and then
She wasn't happy with it.
She was obviously not happy with it.
And she screamed.
She screamed, and she basically, that's how she measured love. Okay, basically saying, "This is how much you love me." Basically, how dare you to, give me like I don't know what it was. I wasn't there, but
I would have knocked on the door just to see what the guy gave her that made her have this reaction.
So obviously this is
I'll take it.
This is the opposite end of the spectrum, right? Where people are so far away from
that's insanity. But you see, that's when this guy should have asked her, "Hey, what's your love language? Gifts." He better give her a nice gift.
Yeah, understanding that, if you can't give anything, and you make a little ring out of a piece of grass or something,
Again,
that also needs to fulfill the same thing as the $10,000, ring. Okay, mm-hmm. So you have to take away this. Otherwise, it's conditional. Okay, it's outright conditional. Okay, if it has to have a certain value, if it has to have a certain color, if it has to have a certain, I don't know, whatever it is, okay, it is definitely not.
Yeah. I mean, gift giving was never
unconditional.
Yeah.
And why, again, coming back to the beginning of this, okay, why I think this is actually worth pursuing is because there is greater happiness and greater peace in this. Okay. And if you're not there, okay, you have a much more stressful existence and probably also going to be a bit unhappy. I think I would certainly be a lot unhappier. Okay, I think there's a lot. Once you're at this, and I hate always to say this is a higher level. Maybe it's a sideways level. Now one is like a higher form. I think that's I don't like the optics of this, but it's I think it's worth pursuing because it gives you more. It makes the human existence easier, especially in terms of the relationships. Yeah, you need to also be happy by yourself without a relationship. Okay, we have not talked about this. Okay, like how to be actually happy without any relationships. Okay, but and most people do want to be in a relationship. I assume that most people do want to be in a relationship. I think that is it's worth talking about this to be at sort of at peace and it makes the existence easier.
Yeah, well, I think we're coming up on the end here. We've beaten this horse to death for now. I was gonna just end on that note of what you was just circling in my head. You were saying earlier that the intent of back to the unconditional love and the intent of what's been said matters. The intention behind, and I agree because again they're toxic personalities and situations and people, and we talked about narcissism a little bit and manipulation and emotional abuse and just real harmful behaviors that the intent does matter. And if your partner unfortunately happens to be one of these people, then of course you should protect yourself and walk away and do you have to love them? And then, of course, we haven't talked about infidelity and all of that, which are extreme cases. And, you know, can love survive that? Does that mean there's no love? We'll leave that for a different episode. But, you know, there are things that can happen where, you know, love can be destroyed, perhaps, or, you know, and I say, well, love should exist forever, but yeah, well, I guess it is.
Yeah, we'll talk about
idealistic and pie in the sky. And even if you do still love them, always reserve the right to walk away, and that is for your own happiness and theirs, or theirs. And so you can separate love from, like I said, the relationship. That's why I wanted to look at it in these kind of tiers, and because they are separate things.
Good.
All right, everybody.
Till
next time. This is Dan
and Dominic, Dom,
and we will leave you on that note to ponder. Leave your comments, if any.
Yes, please.
And suggestions. And until next time.
We'll hear you soon.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.